Hi, I'm Doreen Barnes, and welcome to Reader's Corner. Joining me is a former teacher and current school trustee, Jeff McMillan, and he's here to talk about his book, What If? It's regarding education, of course, and learning for the 21st century. So, Jeff, who or what persuaded you to write this book?
To be honest with you, Doreen, this is the second book. When I retired from teaching, I had a great career, and the moment I left teaching, I went straight to working with student teachers. And as I was working with the student teachers, it became very obvious to me that through this wonderful career that I had a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of information that I wanted to pass on. So I wrote the first book, which was called 30 Years of Mondays. And the 30 Years of Mondays basically talked about what I knew as a teacher, and really the key to my success was the power of caring about kids, caring about staying current, caring enough to differentiate and so on. And that was great. But in the last part of my career, I was doing some wonderful things with project-based learning and with inquiry approach to learning, and total integration of subject areas. And there was a lot of people asking, how do you do that? And what is this all about?
Yes.
And so that really was the reason for the second book. And the second book obviously is much more technical, much more research required to really get to the heart and soul as to the success of that approach to teaching students.
When I was reading through it, I felt, oh, why weren't you around when I was going to school? Because these methods that are in here are just awesome.
It's amazing.
It is. And there are so many great teachers out there, and then there's teachers that just can't seem to get it across, you know. And it's, but no, your book is wonderful, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So, now, if I am grasping the content of the book, I want to make sure that I did. There are teachers, as I said, that are very enthusiastic out there, and they like to pass on the knowledge and the learning. And in order to do that, you sort of have to learn in an environment, a safe environment, whereby you're encouraging and really relating to the student what the subject matter is.
Exactly.
So I've got it.
You've got it. And,
yes.
And also in addition to that, you have to understand that the whole role of the teacher changes. No longer is the teacher who is standing in front of the classroom with this wealth of knowledge that they're going to give to the student. The ownership is being passed now on to the student, and it's the responsibility of the teacher to become sometimes what is referred to as a coach. And it doesn't mean that you still don't teach, because you do, but you coach and you create a learning environment that is rich and engaging and relevant. And those are so important for our kids to stay in school and want to be there.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And from the student's point of view, they want to be there because they are learning. It's exciting to learn.
You know, there's a lot of conversations about the kids that are out there today, but I can tell you that they all want to be a part of something. They all want to make a difference. They all want to be engaged. And the thing that I hear constantly from students is they want it to be relevant.
Yes.
And you know, there's such hope for these kids because they really want to make a difference. And I see that this style, this approach to teaching, this approach to education is kind of the key to bringing these kids forward and saying, you know what, I've got lots to offer. And we do that by building them up through this approach.
Now, you talk about the real world.
Yes.
What is the real world to you?
Well, you know, I used to get that as a teacher all the time. When you would be working with students, you'd get the occasional parent who would say to you, you know, that's not what it's like in the real world. In other words, what they're saying is the real world is much harsher. There is no time or patience for people who are not keeping up. You darn well better change things if you want kids to fit into the world. And the real world out there, and I got thinking about the real world, because, you know, for years and years and years, the educational system has basically modeled what is out there, preparing kids for what out there. And when you look at the title, What If, the what if has many different meanings, but one of the what ifs that I was thinking about as I was doing the book was, what if no longer did schools try to model what was in the real world? What if the real world could model what schools could be? An environment of collaboration, an environment of cooperation, an environment where kids you know, accept other people's opinions, are critical in their thinking, suspend judgment before they form an opinion. Imagine if the world out there modeled what we could be, and that's the what if. And I really believe that the real world as it is right now is not necessarily the world that we should be modeling. We should be aspiring to a different kind of environment that's out there of cooperation, getting together, working in teams, being able to get along, not only with the people you work with, but globally. Because you know, as I mentioned in the book, the walls of the economic walls of the world have come tumbling down.
Oh, yes.
And with that comes the need for people to be able to collaborate with others across the globe. And so there's skills that when you and I were growing up, that weren't necessarily valued in the school because we didn't see the need, now become very important in today's world.
How important is technology now?
Well, you know, it's funny. I'm what they call a digital immigrant. And the kids that are born today are called digital natives. They're born almost with a computer in their hands, or they've got an iPad, and so these kids are very comfortable with the technology. The people like myself, we are the digital digital immigrants. We're very new to it, and a lot of teachers are very new to it because there's a lot of young people in education, but the people that have been around for a while are very uncomfortable with the technology. Probably the most important part of all of this is technology is not going away. In fact, things are changing at a rapid pace, and kids, to them, technology is second nature. It's just what they do. What I see as technology in school is we need to embrace the power of technology, but we cannot allow technology to control the kids. And here's one of the things that we really need to spend time with in terms of looking at education is giving kids the opportunity to understand how technology can be used to their advantage and not have it manipulate them. Because they're so comfortable drifting through technology that it'd be very easy to be controlled by that. So when we bring technology into our school system, we need to use it to enhance their learning. We need to use it in ways that helps them show their understanding. But it is only a tool like everything else that we have in the educational system. So I think to ignore it would be very foolish. To embrace it and embrace it wisely is going to certainly engage the kids, and it's going to help them develop a stronger understanding in ways that they learn today. You know, if you look at the information age that I was thinking on just the other day, and I think I mentioned it in one of the books that I wrote, when I was growing up, the only time I knew about the world was at 6 o'clock when Walter Cronkite told me that that's the way it is. And that was the only thing I knew in terms of the world. Kids today, at the touch of a finger, can access information from any source. The key is it valid information? Is it reliable? When was it last updated? And that's what we want kids to do. We want them to become very critical in how they use that.
And the other thing, too, is what's great about the real world is that our students are traveling now. We, years and years ago, when you and I were going to school, we didn't travel globally. Now they are. And they're learning. They're seeing new cultures and what's happening out there. And it's exciting.
It is. And you know what? When they get out and they see the world, they look at it much differently than we do. They're much more accepting of other cultures, much more accepting of differences in cultures, and I think that's a wonderful thing. And I encourage anyone that has the opportunity to travel.
Oh, definitely.
My daughter was a huge traveler, and she's been around the world twice and lived in Australia, and it probably was the richest learning experience of her life to do that.
Yeah, good for her. Good for her.
They had the chance to do it.
In the book, there's an acronym, REAL, R-E-E-L.
Yes.
Would you please explain that?
It stands for relevant, enduring, education, or relevant, engaging, enduring learning. And what it was when you are teaching in this style, you want the stuff that the kids are working to be relevant. In other words, they need to see how it ties into the world beyond the school, how they're going to use that particular skill. In other words, it answers the question, what's in it for me? Why should I know that? Engaging in the sense that what you're doing is you're getting kids involved in issues that are real world issues. For example, global warming, social injustice. You want kids to get into that kind of stuff so they get engaged. Enduring, very interesting when you do the research on project-based learning or inquiry-based learning or whatever you want to call it, that's slightly different. when they've done studies on that, there's absolutely no difference in the test scores between a student that has been taught through a textbook, very traditional method, and the other. They're the same, with one exception.
Which
it's
is?
enduring. It's
Oh.
lasting. Kids remember for a long, long, long time what they have found as relevant and engaging. And when you get students, I mean, I could now go to students that I had worked with 5, 6 years ago, and we could talk about the issues we were dealing with, and I can guarantee you they would know it today better than they knew it then, because they embraced it. And so it's relevant, engaging, enduring, learning.
And learning.
And learning.
And learning as well.
And learning is key, because you see, today, when we grew up, I mean, I ended up teaching for 30 years in the same job. The students today that are graduating are not going to have that same luxury to be able to go into a job and stay in that for the rest of their lives. If they can, that's wonderful. But all of the research that's out there right now is saying that they possibly will have 4 or 5 jobs, which means, and not only that, not only are they going to have to learn different jobs and different skill sets, they're also going to have to learn within a job how things change and adapt. So what they need to be is lifelong learners.
Oh, yes,
and
definitely.
they have to know how to learn. And so learning is critical to this whole thing.
I want to thank you for sitting down with us and talking about What If. It's a wonderful book. I think everybody should read it out there so that they understand. There's models out there that can be used for our students so that they will learn and fit in to the 21st century. Perfect. So thank you ever so much for dropping by. And I want to thank you, our viewers. We'll be right back.